Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, today I'm going to do a video I've been threatening to do for a long while, and I haven't got around to doing it for various reasons that most of you watch the channel know. But today I am going to finally try and video or do a screen capture of this thing, the Yamaha CX5M, and show you how I set it up. But before we get going on that, we must do the parish notices, which are, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why not? Hit the subscribe icon. If you want to be notified when content like this hits the channel, that's the bell icon. If you like what you see, give it a thumbs up. It really helps. And finally, somewhere down there is the TMTG community. Support the channel, support the production of videos, and also down there are the Facebook and Instagram feeds. Go over there, that's where channel announcements are made. But now, back to the video. So I've had a CX5M computer for quite a while, and I've played with it, and it's been put in a box, it's been put away. And then, before Christmas 2020, another one has turned up. Now, somebody said, would I like to showcase this? And I said I already had one. They said, well, they wanted to give one to a good home. So I've got a second one. Now, this is not the Plus. This is the standard one. But whereas my other one didn't come in a box, this is actually the original box, minus the keyboard, which doesn't matter because I've got the keyboard somewhere else. Let me just get this out of the box without dropping everything. So that is, I think, the power brick. I was right, it's the power brick. There you go. There is the power brick for this thing. They didn't make them small in those days, did they? There you go. And further in here, between two foam inserts, should be the computer itself. Now, you know the difference between this and the the Plus is that the Plus has two cartridge slots on it, whereas this only has the one. So my other one is actually a better machine than this, has more RAM on it as well. But this was the original, and it's in really good nick. So even got the joystick plugins with covers on them, and the keyboard piece over here with the cover on it, which I'm not going to use for this particular video. The MIDI sockets over there. So this is the actual, if you look at the back of this thing, this bit here is the actual synth bit. Okay, so this is a basic MSX computer. So that's the sort of standard that the Japanese companies were pumping out in the mid-80s to compete with the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64. The difference between this, and I've said this before, is this actually runs Microsoft Basic. So the manufacturers and Microsoft got together and they all basically built a machine to a standard that could all run Microsoft Basic, and Microsoft supplied the Basic. So this has a version of Basic circa early 80s installed on it. And then Yamaha then customized it with this bit here, which is the synth cartridge. So that was what was in the box. Now we're going to get on to actually connecting this up so I can actually screen record it, because I'm going to do a whole bunch of videos on this CX5M because there were a whole bunch of cartridges released for it, and I have been gathering the cartridges, either buying them or people have been donating them to me for probably the last year and a half. So I've actually got quite a good selection of cartridges now, including the editors. And the editors are quite important, especially for things like the DX7, because you can edit it on screen and then dump it to the DX7. It's different to the programmer. So anybody who's got the D-Tronics program, the DT1000, and I apologise if I've got that wrong because that was straight off the top of my head. But anybody who's got the programmer, it's a different style of idea. So the editor is for editing patches and building new patches. The programmer is more sort of on the fly, dumping it backwards and forwards. In essence, they do the same thing in a different way. So let's get through to start setting this up. Okay, so I've turned the camera on and you're now looking at a TV, and you can see me there because I reflect in the TV because it's nice and shiny because it's very clean. In fact, it's actually just come out of one of the housemates' old houses, which she is in the process of selling. Anyway, the reason I'm showing the back of the TV, because this kind of illustrates the problem you have when you're dealing with legacy tech such as the CX5M. Now, if I bring that round and we all look at the back of the CX5M, what we see, no you don't see because you're not in the shop, but what we see are the outputs, and you can see there is a component video, there is an RF output, there's a sound output, and then I think that's the RGB socket on this one, because on the later model the RGB is down here. Okay, and as you notice, if you look at the back of this TV, none of those sockets really appear, apart from our, so we do have an antenna in, so we could run this RF if we wanted to. Not sure that's really where we want to go, but this TV is of sufficient age that it is in kind of crossover state. So we actually have 3 HDMIs, we have component video, we have RF, and we have what we call in Europe a SCART connector. I think they're known generally as Euro SCART in the US, and there's also an optical in, but we're not going to bother with that at the moment. Now, the problem we have with this legacy stuff is how do you get this into here in a way that you can video it? Now, I can tell you now, I can do it in one of two ways. I can either come into a Euroscart, because I actually have an RGB Euroscart connector for this setup, but really what I want to do is I want to come in on HDMI. And the reason why I want to come in on HDMI is because if I can come in on HDMI, I can record the output directly onto my computer, which is the ultimate goal of this exercise. So here goes. You know what they say about assumption? So my intention was to use this new computer, well, new computer, old computer if you get my drift, to do the video, and I thought that was the RGB out. Of course, silly me, it's not the RGB out at all. It's the power supply in. So this does not have an RGB out, which rather scuppers what I was going to do. But not to be perturbed. I've gone and got my original CX5. This is the one with the 2 slots on the top. And we'll use this because that has, that one there is an RGB out. So we'll carry on the video using this machine rather than that machine. Still has the same thing on the bottom. There's the magic synthesizer, but I can't use that one. Anyway, we shall carry on. So under normal circumstances, what I'll be trying to do is I will be trying to get that into one of these, like so. Okay, that's all well and good, but it only allows me to put the computer into the TV, and I need to record what's coming out of the computer, and I also want to upscale the video signal for how we're going to do this. So what I'm going to do is take that out, and this is an RGB this is an HDMI cable, and I'm going to go into HDMI 1, and then I'm going to turn TV around like so. That way. We won't have to turn the TV around again. So there's the HDMI output ready for the next stage of this piece. Okay, this is where it really gets quite interesting because I've never done 3 sources before. So I've got this camera, I've got that camera, and I'm going to have a video feed going into that machine. Never done this before, it's getting good, isn't it? So, what we need to do first off is untangle the wires, which is most unusual for me because I normally leave them in a untangled state, and plug that in like so. Now the difference between this computer and the old computer is it doesn't come with a power brick. So the original CX5Ms came with the power brick, which I showed you earlier. This doesn't. It has all the power gubbins inside the machine itself. So I don't have to worry about a power brick. And in fact, actually, I'm a bit disappointed with this machine not having a RGB output, because it actually doesn't help me going forward. Just put that back. So I'm going to have to think about what I do with this machine. I mean, I know it was given to me, but something needs to cover the cost of running the channel, I suppose. So now we need to start with the bits and pieces. So got one of those, anything else in here, and a power supply. Right, let's get that out of the way. Power supply, and then over here we've got some other bits and bobs. What have we got? So those of you who watched the channel in the last while will know that I bought these actually several months back to do this piece of work, and haven't quite had a chance to do it. So we've got that, and then we've got now these HDMI cables, there's nothing special about these HDMI cables. They're bulk standard HDMI cables that you can buy on Amazon for a few pounds, a few dollars, depending on which jurisdiction you're in. Another one, and that's empty. Right, so they can go out the way. Right, so all this down here needs to make this talk to that and that. So here we go. Now, if I remember this correctly, what we need to do is, the first thing we need to do is on the back of this is plug in the RGB connector. I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The RGB connector on a Yamaha machine is not the same as the RGB connector for a Roland machine. And it's not the same for RGB connectors for other machines of the same era. So just a point to warn, don't assume all RGB sockets are the same, because they are not. So there you go, RGB into there. Put that back on the desk. Right, so we know we've got a connection now from this to somewhere. The next thing we need to do is we need to go into the upscaler, which is what this little box here is. Now this will take a low res signal, which is what comes out of this thing, and it will upscale it to a signal that this can be properly read by this. So we plug that into here, and then we need to give this some power. I will later on get my labeler out and label this up. Okay, so that goes into there, like so. And then it goes into the power socket, which is here, just by the RGB socket. And we have power, look, power. So the next thing we need to do is we now need to take the output of this and test it to see if we get a TV signal. So if I plug the HDMI we recently plugged into the TV on there, and then what I'm going to do is switch the TV on. And like all modern TVs, if you haven't got the remote control, you're a bit snookered. Right. So luckily enough, when my housemate brought this round, she brought the remote control as well. Hey, thumbs up. Right. no input signal. So input, and we want to go to HDMI 1, I think. So how does this work? Like so. Okay. Great stuff. We're on HDMI 1. I'm going to boot the machine up. Hey, result. We have, and look, the input is running at 1920 times 1080 at 50 Hertz. Okay, that is a massive result. Okay, and if I now type in there you go. Standard computer, standard Microsoft Basic, showing off my programming skills, not. Right, so we now know that this is talking to that, and it's actually talking to that really nicely. Right, so the next thing is we now need to put the computer, which is sitting off to one side, into the mix. Now I'm going to just rearrange the desk a little bit so I can get the computer over here rather than over here. Okay, so I'm just going to shut the videos off for a minute. The problem with these things is you end up with lots of wires, which is all well and good, but you still end up with lots of wires. So we now have this going to that. So just so I don't blow anything up, I'm just going to switch this off. I'll put this back to standby. There you go. And I need to break the connection between the TV and the splitter. That's when these other cables come into hand. So what I'm doing now is, this is another HDMI cable, okay, and this cable, when I've undone all the wire tags on it, is going to run from the upscaler, which is here. So you put that in there. So that's where the telly was plugged in a minute ago, and it's going to run from the upscaler, and it's going to run to this HDMI unit. Okay, and it goes into the input. So there's one input on one side, outputs on the other side. So that's gone into the input, and now we're going to take the telly out of output 1, and we'll just make sure that's still working. It's on HDMI. Is it seeing it? Result. Right. So we now have that running into a splitter. The next piece we're going to do here is we're going to take a second HDMI cable out of here. And we're going to run that from the splitter. So we're going to go into output 2 on the splitter, like so. And we are going to put that into, this is the video capture card for the system. And that goes in like so. Now this does actually have a socket in it to take in power, and depending on how this works will depend on whether I actually need to power this up. It seems to be at the moment taking power from the HDMI cable, which is great, but sometimes it's better to actually give its own independent power supply. Now theoretically everything here should be independently powered, so the splitter is independently powered. Great. So that's what's putting the power on the signal at the moment, and this will be powered by the USB bus on the computer. So the next thing we need to do, of course, is plug this into here. Now this is a USB 3 compatible device. My Apple Mac runs USB 3. Doesn't matter if you don't run USB 3, you can run USB 2. Just bear in mind that it might not run at the same speed. Right, now I have power on that capture card. So the next thing we need to do, and I'm going to do this off camera, I'm going to tell you what's just happened. Is I just went through this and did the video and showed you the bits working, and then I deleted the video from the Mac, so I'm reshooting it. Now, I know I've got it sus because I've just done it. Okay, so what I'm doing on here is I'm going to do a video in video. Hopefully this will capture it, and I'll show you that because it should be appearing hopefully up there. And you can see what's going on the desktop because you've got the camera up here, and obviously you've got the screen here for reference as well. So what you need to do on the Mac is, first of all, you put it into record mode, which is now what it's in. And I just need to give it a bit of something to sync with, so I'm just going to do this. Okay, that should hopefully give the Mac a sync signal. That's what clapperboards are used for. And what I'm going to do on here is go into QuickTime like so, cancel, and I'm going to do a new movie recording. And what you need to do in the movie recording, although it's all automatically come through because I've just done it, but you need to go into the settings and you need to set the camera to USB video, so it's taking the video in from the USB device, and obviously the microphone can come from wherever the microphone's coming from, but at the moment I'm using the external shell, if you like, to actually take this microphone feed in. So that's great, and you can also select what quality you want to record in. Now I've got mine set to maximum, and therefore if I now start typing commands over here, so if I type list, it should list my program, which is Hello World, and it's come up here and it's come up there. And if I then go run, there you go, standard Hello World. Scrolling off the bottom of the screen. So if I go shift and stop, there you go, I've stopped it. It's taken me back a long way, I must admit. I haven't actually done any remote programming for many years. And so what I will say about this, okay, that is a pretty good signal, I have to be honest. In fact, I'm actually over the moon with the signal that's on the TV. Now, I don't think you can see this on camera because of the resolution, but you can see lines where it has been upscaled. But I have to be brutally honest and say I think this device is doing an absolutely beautiful job of upscaling the signal that comes out of this, which I think is something like 240p, to a device that can accept 1080p. So that, from that perspective, I'm absolutely wrapped. What I'm even more wrapped about, though, is how it's coming across onto the Mac through the USB capture device. Whereas I can see these lines here, I can't see anything on there. This is actually a really good rendering of what's coming out of this computer. So I'm absolutely stoked about how that looks, which is good, because now that I've shown you guys how I've done it, guess what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be doing a lot of videos in the next coming weeks on this thing, because I think there's a number of cartridges. I mean, as I said, I've got the DX7 cartridge. I've got various other cartridges that have come from the MSX world, and I'm really looking forward to actually playing with those on here and showing you guys what this MSX computer can do. But not only that, if I refer back to this is the cable for the Roland samplers. So that's the S50, the S330 that I've got, the S550 that I've got, which is in storage, and the S750 that I've got. All of those I can now do exactly the same setup, because all I'm doing is replacing that cartridge, that SCART connector, with this SCART connector. So again, I can do a lot of videos now where you can actually see what's going on the sampler screen as I actually go through and start doing some stuff with those. So from my perspective and all round, this has been a worthwhile exercise. Yes, it's cost me some money because I've had to put all this stuff together, But I will be brutally honest and say it hasn't cost me an arm and a leg, which some of these devices were. In fact, I saw one of these devices here at around about $400. And what I'm seeing here, to be honest, is you don't need to spend $400 on one of these. In fact, actually, I think I spent about $60 on that. And that was the most expensive part of it. But I am absolutely wrapped. The whole thing is working. It's working well. So on that note, what I'm going to do is say my standalone greeting is, live long and prosper. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.